I want to tell you a story about my very first inkling that I had thyroid disease. Let's talk about fatigue, shall we? Hello, friend. If you're new here, my name is Kylie. I'm the founder of Thyroid School, and I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. I also have lipedema, and on this channel, I talk about all things thyroid life related because I believe my thyroid disease is here to teach me something, and what I learn about myself, I share with you guys. So I hope you stick around. When I was 21 years old and I had just moved across Australia from one side to the other, I was working in a private hospital in the kitchen. I was doing what was called split shifts at the time. So I would go in and do the morning rush or the morning shift, and then I would come home. I lived really nearby, so I rode my bike. I would come home, and then I would have a half a day kind of thing before I would go back for the evening shift. Now, what started happening was that I started coming home and just crashing on the couch and falling asleep, having to set my alarm and then having to get up and go back for the following shift. As days went by, it got to a point where there was no time to eat in that time that I was back at home. There was no time to do anything. I would literally get up, go to work, come home, sleep on the couch, get up, go to work, come home, sleep on the couch. I assume that I had dinner at some point with my then boyfriend that I was living with, but I don't remember any of that. I just remember the sheer agony of having to rouse myself up off the couch to get to the next shift or to get to work in the morning. It was insane, and there seemed to be no reason for it. Now, it was still many, many months, potentially also into the years. I can't remember exactly. It was a long time before I was actually diagnosed. And it wasn't until the weight came on and all the other things that happened before I was actually diagnosed. This was 30 years ago. So it wasn't a go-to then. I say that, but it's not a go-to now quite often unless we're proactive about understanding our own symptoms and we take it to the doctor and ask them to test us. So it certainly wasn't a go-to back then. I just happened to find a doctor in my local area. It was yet another doctor that I went to, as we all do, and she happened to have thyroid disease. She had Graves' disease. So she knew what she was dealing with, and that's when I finally got a diagnosis, which is why I always recommend, if you're going to work with somebody, find somebody who has thyroid disease and understands where you're at, where you've been, knows what to look for, and has more vested interest in getting to know all the intricacies that is thyroid disease. With many of you that I've spoken to, clients, followers, subscribers, many of you have shared with me that fatigue is your biggest issue. And it took me a while to realize that that was actually my very first experience, because it was over 30 years ago. That was my first experience. Do I still get fatigue today? No. But you know what? It's my first sign that something's amiss. If I start to feel tired, if I don't have the energy that I know that I normally have now, then I know something's amiss, and it sends me looking deeper into what's going on in my life. Am I stressed? All the things, okay? But here's the thing with thyroid fatigue. We run around and think we need a doctor to fix the thyroid fatigue because there's something wrong with our thyroid. However, there is so many other causes for fatigue in general in our everyday life that, yes, thyroid fatigue may have been the starting point for these things, but then they end up compounding on one another. And it's not necessarily the fatigue you're experiencing on an everyday basis may not necessarily be caused by your thyroid. Hang with me on this one. Let's use some examples, okay? Decision fatigue. You get up in the morning when you finally rouse yourself out of bed. You stare at your clothes. You have got 2 closets full of clothes. you can't decide what to wear. First point of fatigue for the day. You then walk out to the kitchen and you've ended up just throwing on any old thing because it's just too hard to choose. So you tend to pick up the things that are on the ground in front of you that you threw off the day before because it's just there, right? Okay. You go into the kitchen. You don't know what else to do. You have coffee. That's got to help, right? That's got to give you some sort of little burst or kick you into gear in some way, shape, or form. It does for a little while. Then you crash. Then you need another coffee to get you up a little bit higher. But then what happens with caffeine is you crash even further. And as you do this throughout the day, you go higher, but then you go lower. And it's this never-ending cycle of fatigue caused by the caffeine crashes. Breakfast, you have carbs, you have heavy sugars in breakfast cereals, or you've got the sugar in the coffee, or you have bread with jam on it, or jelly, or more sugar. Does the same thing as the caffeine. We have these crashes all day. So the fatigue is actually caused by the sugar crashes, the caffeine crashes, not actually from your thyroid not coping with it, but because you're doing this with your insulin levels, which is causing these crashes throughout the day. But again, we go, no, we've got thyroid disease. It's our thyroid. We don't look further afield at all the other causes of fatigue. You've got your coffee, you've had your sugary breakfast, so you've set yourself up for a crash already, for a fatigue crash. You've already experienced decision fatigue because you didn't know what to wear. Then you look at the house, which you need to potentially tidy up before you go to work, or before people come over, or before you have to take the kids to school, whatever your day involves. And there's so much clutter. There's so many bits and bobs around the house that the thought of having to move all those bits and bobs, to wipe it down, to dust, to clean, to put away is again overwhelming. You're tired before you even start, and therefore you don't start. And then you end up on the couch flicking through YouTube or whatever your thing is, because it's just too tiring to even consider doing all the other things, right? Not all fatigue is caused by thyroid fatigue. And that is the key to feeling better, is understanding that perhaps you're experiencing soul fatigue, where you're knocking yourself out every day going to a job you hate, and you'd really rather be doing, I don't know, being a world famous cake decorator, right? So your soul is tired, doesn't want to go to work every day, but you have to because you've got bills to pay, you've got responsibilities to take care of. You may be fatigued because you're low in potassium and magnesium. Magnesium is our stress and sugar mineral. Potassium, well, it's probably one of the leading causes nutritionally for fatigue. And I know many of you watching this is just going to run out and get some potassium because that's the quick fix. Okay, we don't have to look at our lifestyle. We don't have to look at it why our soul is tired. We don't have to look at decision fatigue. We don't have to do all the things. We can just take a pill, which we take for 2 or 3 days, and then we forget about it because we didn't have an instant response, and it's too tiring to continue taking them or to remember to add it to our already exhausting list of things to do today. So you see the problem here. It's horrible, and I know exactly what that's like because the couch between the split shifts at the hospital, I didn't see relief from that for a long time. Okay, so I'm here in retrospect of living with this for 30 years and understanding that our life can be a bunch of all different fatigues thrown in together. The mistake that we make as thyroid patients is expecting the doctor to fix our thyroid, which will fix our fatigue. Not always the case, okay? Unfortunately, we have to do the hard work. We have to let go of the traumas that are keeping us tired. the stresses that's keeping us tired, the deficiencies that are keeping us tired, the overwhelming amount of clutter we have around the house that's keeping us tired, the decisions that are keeping us tired, the quick fix coffees and sugary things that are keeping us tired in the long run. Okay, that's a bit like zero sugar things, right? They've actually, we take it as a quick fix because we think that, oh, the sweeteners are going to stop us from putting on weight. But they've done studies that long term, the sweeteners cause weight gain because it's keeping that sweet taste on our tongue. Okay, so fatigue is the same thing. We're looking for the quick fixes of the coffee and the sugar and anything that, you know, a quick pill or the doctor fix us. Anything outside of ourselves is what we're looking for, when the true answers are actually within ourselves and actually getting to the bottom of why we are experiencing decision fatigue, why we are experiencing toxic fatigue, nutritional deficiency fatigue. All of these things are the real issues with fatigue. Thyroid disease may have started it, but it didn't keep it going. Okay, so stop focusing on the thyroid being the problem and the doctor fixing said problem, and start looking at where you can reduce the fatigue in the rest of your life.